Group G, Brazil, tournament favorites. They are minus 275 to win Group G. They are 4-1 to win the whole tournament. They are playing in a pod with Switzerland plus 450 to win the group, Serbia 6-1, Cameroon 20-1. Switzerland and Serbia are basically the same odds to advance. Brazil's minus 900 and Cameroon are plus 350 to just advance. It's pretty uninteresting group for me, just from a betting perspective. I don't have much here. I think yeah, I mean, honestly, I've got nothing here. This one's pretty straightforward for me. I think I have a tough time separating Serbia and Switzerland, so I'll probably just take the bigger number on Serbia if I had to. BJ, what about you?
So I think there's a way to play this group where we can essentially get good prices on both Switzerland and Serbia to advance, to where we come down to that final match and you have either opportunity to hedge on Serbia, or you can get even Serbia at a bigger number. Because what the reality is that, well, the funny part is these three teams were paired together at the 2018 World Cup as well, and Serbia got beat both times by Switzerland and Brazil. I mean, with Brazil, I mean, what do you say? Like, they're deserving of being the tournament favorites, in my opinion. They probably have the most talent of anybody in this entire World Cup. They've been the best team throughout South American qualifying. And Neymar is honestly in the form of his life for PSG this season. So, I mean, what else do you really say about Brazil? Like, they're also one of these teams that's incredibly possession dominant, but it's a stranglehold on the ball. So, you know, their first match against Serbia, we'll talk about it in length, but there's a wonderful bet I like there. But I like Brazil, Switzerland, you know, essentially group forecast first, second at plus 175, because, you know, Switzerland is going to be favored over Serbia in the final match. And with Serbia playing Brazil in that first match and Switzerland playing Cameroon being a minus 130 favorite, you're going to get a scenario, if everything goes according to plan, where Switzerland and Brazil are going to be atop the group, 3 points, and you could get potentially a pretty big number on Serbia to advance, or essentially in the final match against Switzerland, where they'll be essentially over plus 200. I mean, the Swiss team, again, another team that Anthony has me drinking the Kool-Aid, because they're a team much like Denmark that's been playing together for a really, really long time and knows exactly what they want to do tactically. Like, yes, they tend to sit a little bit deeper and then just look to counter. Granit Xhaka is also in the form of his life for Arsenal. He's enjoyed a little bit more of an attacking role for Arsenal. He'll have to play a little bit more defensive alongside Freuler in their system. Breel Mbolo is a really fun striker. They have a very solid center back pairing. We don't know if Jan Sommer is going to be healthy enough for the World Cup yet, but like their next option, you know, Cabal, who is having a great season for Dortmund. So he's a fine replacement. Like, it's a team that's very, very well drilled, can sit back in a 4-4-2 low block when they're out of possession and really frustrate a lot of teams. And Serbia, it's just like, they're just going to cross you to death. Like, basically all they do is they say, okay, we're going to get the ball moving forward. We'll get it out to, you know, Filip Kostic or Dusan Tadic, and we'll just send crosses into Vlahovic and Mitrovic. And you know, they rely on their physicality quite a bit to overpower a lot of teams. Like, that's how they're very well drilled. But when they're out of possession, what Serbia likes to do is, like, they're very aggressive with their pressing, and they just kind of have no fear, which tends to lead to a lot of open matches. That's why their matches throughout World Cup qualifying have averaged 3.1 expected goals. So, you know, it's impressive to get through a World Cup qualifying group over Portugal, who we'll get to in a second. But I think there's a good situation here with how the group sets up, with, you know, Serbia playing Brazil first, Switzerland playing Cameroon first, and then the final match being Serbia and Switzerland, where you can have a wonderful hedge opportunity. So I'm going to play Brazil, Switzerland first, second, and then look to play back on Serbia to have a nice price before we get to that final match.
Anthony, anything for you here, Group G, before we wrap things up with Group H?
Yeah, I can't decide if I want to hop off the Switzerland bandwagon or not. Sorry, BJ. I know you hitched your wagon to my Swiss boys. We had a really fun Euro. We were within a penalty shootout of the semifinal. We would have beaten Italy. We would have won the tournament. We were so close. But you know, Serbia on paper has just a lot more attacking talent than Switzerland. So I like the defense of Switzerland more, without a doubt. But you kind of look at the way that the form table sets up, like how informed Mitrovic is, scares me. How good at crossing Kostic is, Vlahovic, like, they're perfectly set up for these crosses, and they can kind of just bypass the midfield advantage that I think Switzerland's going to have in the match with Xhaka and Freuler. that kind of concerns me. Zakaria as well has not been in form much, has not been playing much for Chelsea. I love Breel Embolo. We love him. We had him, the first match of the Euros when he scored against Wales. It was awesome. He's very good at kind of helping their attack because their attack struggles so much with getting the ball into the penalty area. He just kind of comes short, takes the ball, and then runs with it. We've talked about that before. They have the guy who led the Euros in assists was Zuber, but you kind of just look across the board and you're like, okay, there's kind of a limit to how like the ceiling is low for Switzerland because their attack is just not that good. And I do see a world where Serbia, with its attacking players, because it's not just Vlahovic. When it was just Vlahovic and Mitrovic wasn't in good form, I was like how much we really like this team. But now I'm starting to spin a narrative where like Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, Kostic, and Tadic are just such good playmakers compared to what you're seeing for Switzerland. That match is probably rightly a toss-up. And so I actually have not bet this anything here. I think I'm going to end up staying away. We'll see. I may come around and change my mind again and just trust my Swiss boys to get through, which they always seem to do. They always seem to get through and then lose in the round of 16, which I'm kind of expecting for whoever gets second in this group. But Cameroon is interesting. I think there's a world where if Serbia doesn't come to fruition the way I think that they could, and Switzerland starts to fall off the way that I think they could, that Cameroon could surprise some people. Like there is some talent on this team. I love Onana in goal. They have decent underlying numbers in qualifying. Like I said, there is talent on this roster overall. But in general, they're clearly on paper the fourth team. But Choupo-Moting's been in good form. Zembo Anguissa is kind of the man in midfield. Like he's been one of the best midfielders, I'd argue, in the world. The defensive question marks definitely exist for this team, but the peak ages are solid. Like everybody, all their best players are, with between 25 and 29, 30. So you like that. Toko Ekambi has been good too. So like there's a interesting battle for second here. I do agree Brazil wins this comfortably, but the battle for second will be a fun one in this group. And if, the next group goes a little bit differently, there could be a path, I think, for the team to get through depending on who wins the other group.